Hi there, it's me, Matt Lane, co-host of Because of the Universe, and it seems like you have missed a show, but don't worry, here it is. We hope you enjoy it.
Your award-winning student radio station.
This is your role.
Good morning, it's 11 o'clock on Saturday. This is the first Saturday of the new term, which is exciting, and you are listening to Because of the Universe on Radio at Warwick with him, Harry Manners, or Mr. Manners, as I like to call him. He is in fact the 3 times UK national kickboxing champion in another universe.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much for that introduction. And he is Matthew Lane, incurable extinguisher of ignorance and inveterate illuminator.
Sorry, I'm incurable of my ignorance.
You're an incurable extinguisher of ignorance.
Oh. Whew.
And inveterate illuminator.
Say that again. Just say it again.
I'll say it all at once, just one more time for everybody. Incurable extinguisher of ignorance and inveterate illuminator.
Blimey.
Oh, yes.
What?
Yeah, I brought out the dictionary for that one.
You did?
Oh, yeah.
Did you actually bring out a dictionary or just dictionary.com?
No, I am just that amazing.
Okay, yes. You know that many words.
I do, unfortunately.
It's impressive.
Yes,
impressive.
a life well wasted.
Yeah, right. So,
anyway.
This is Because the Universe. Welcome back. This is our first show of the new term.
It is indeed.
So
it's going to be a good one.
It is going to be a good one. We've got some pretty big questions.
Yeah.
Not that we planned them in advance.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Ducky chooses them in the show.
Yeah, Ducky.
But I get the feeling that...
yes, our prescient little...
duck.
Yes, Foresight.
Who isn't here.
No, he's absent once again.
Yeah, he's over in Saudi Arabia learning how to do Mexican dancing at the moment. Yeah. But he sends his fond hellos to us. Apologies for not being here, but we'll Skype him later on to find out what we're going to talk about today. So just a reminder, Because the Universe, this is your bi-weekly satirical science panel discussion show. We're going to have a look at the news that's been going on over the Christmas break. So we've got quite a lot of news. Merry Christmas to you all, a bit belated, I know, but we hope you enjoyed yourselves and enjoyed all of the New Year celebrations that were going on. Then we're going to get down to it, find out our question, our topic, have a discussion. We've got a wonderful guest on today.
Indeed.
We look forward to talking
from
to you later.
From the engineering department.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yes, fantastic.
Anyway, Harry.
Yes.
Shall we get into the news as we are wont to do?
We are.
There's a lot to do. Because
there is. We've tried to skim it down, so we have got the highlights really from
highlights and the lowlights.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we say we've trimmed it down. Prepare for some bump, So I think I'll go first.
Okay, go for it.
With some serious news.
Oh dear.
I know. Unfortunately, we'll get it out of the way. So first off, we have the report by UCL paper published in Nature that most of the world's fossil fuels are unburnable. So this is from the Institute of Sustainable Resources at UCL. We have found that in order to meet global targets to keep global warming beneath 2 degrees Celsius, we have almost 80% of the world's coal, 50% of gas and 30% of oil in the entire world must remain in the ground and never be burnt. Ever. Lest we run over our targets. So this it's not evenly split. So the onus is mainly on the East, China, Russia, the US.
Right.
So they not only do they have to leave their own native resources in the ground, but they have to somehow wrangle their own nation into using as little as possible.
So what this is basically saying is that the targets that we have set.
Yes, according to current models of climate change and how greenhouse gases will affect the atmosphere.
Right.
We have to leave the majority of all of the world's resources that are fossil fuels.
Yeah, what percentages
just in the ground
were they again?
So it's 80% of the world's coal.
80%. So to meet these targets, 80% of all of the coal must be left in the ground.
Yes, forever. And what is it? There's 50% of the gas. So that's an enormous amount of gas, considering recent fracking and shale gas, all of this. So we've just discovered that there's bountiful resources actually available, and now we've discovered we can't actually ever use them.
Yeah.
And also 30% of oil.
Wow. Do you think anyone's going to pay any attention to that?
I highly doubt it. It is only a paper which is published in Nature, so it's one of the most popular science journals in the academic sense. But this has not been raised in any kind of international conference, no summit. So this is just a paper. So
we can safely assume our targets will not be met.
I think we could always have assumed that. Yes,
coming from that. Okay.
Yes. So next up, we have a new astronomical tool. So another paper which has been published by the American Astronomical Society, has found that you can link the age of stars to their spin rate. So this has been suspected for a long time. It's an old model from the 80s, but nobody's been able to pin it down to an applicable tool until now. So you can now age stars to within 10% of accuracy. Compared to this is a notoriously difficult task in astronomy. So we know that when stars form, they will have a certain amount of spin, and they will gradually slow down due to gravitational tidal forces in their stellar neighborhood, and tidal forces with their own planetary systems and so forth. So over time, they will slow down like a spinning top with having friction on a table surface. And now we can actually use this as a very accurate aging tool. So this will revolutionize astronomical aging of stars, and therefore we'll have things like distance calculations, and we can get a much better handle on galactic formation and stellar evolution. So this is also been used just recently to measure a stellar cluster of 30 stars as a test, and we found that it's to within 1% of their previously known age. So it's actually capable of being very good indeed.
Very, very good indeed.
Yes.
So just to make sure I understand this, stars spin in the same way that the Earth or a planet spins.
Yeah.
And that speed at which they're spinning is related to their age.
Yes.
So do they slow down as they get older?
They do. They slow down, just as I said before, like a spinning top you put on a table, due to friction it will slow down. We have gravitational effects in space.
Instead of friction.
Yes.
Interesting. That's good.
Indeed. And we have a final story, the biggest one, and something that I find very exciting. We have the first antibacterial discovery in 30 years.
30 years.
30 years. So superbugs are going to be the greatest threat, I think, to humanity in the 21st century, or one of them in it at least. So growing antibacterial resistance is already a major concern in hospitals. You can already think about things like MRSA. So it's set to become a major concern, even for basic medical procedures, basic operations. Modern medicine may be sent back over a century, so you have gangrene, post-operational infection becoming the norm once again if this is not curtailed. But now we have this new strain discovered, the first in 30 years. It was extracted from soil, and it's called Teixobactin, and it was extracted from, I'll try and pronounce this, Eleftheria terrae, which is a bacteria which inhabits the soil. Clinical trials are due to begin in 2 years.
But I mean, this is very good, and we should give a little bit of background here, because it's not really, in terms of enterprise, it's not really worth it for any private company to try and find a new antibiotic.
No,
because we can make do with what we have.
We can. The ones that work will work until they don't, and then they really won't.
And the reason they don't is because we overuse them. So we overuse these antibiotics, and then things like the common cold, or some of those more severe examples that you gave, they become resistant because you're overusing the antibiotic.
Yes, and then you call into question the basic applicability of really basic medical procedures just because of the danger of background infection. So, as you said before, things like the common cold for which these are prescribed, which is a virus, and it's a very elementary medical fact that viruses are unaffected by antibiotics.
And it's very, very foolish to do that.
It is employed by the medical establishment almost as a calming measure of patients who just want something. Yeah. And so you're saying, here, have some antibiotics, even though the doctor knows they might as well give them sugar pills. It has some kind of remedial effect. Maybe we could call on the placebo effect here. Yeah. But the fact is that you could give them sugar pills and tell them that they're antibiotics, and you would curtail this enormous amount of pressure, selective pressure that you're putting on these antibiotics, which are going to become essentially immune to any kind of method we have to prevent them spreading.
Yeah. Because these diseases that you're talking about, we are seeing, like you said, a resurgence in them, where they're coming back simply because the treatments just don't work anymore.
Yes, they become ineffective, and as you said, there's no money in generating new ones, and there's going to be a point where suddenly we're going to get this rapid, almost a cliff edge, where suddenly nothing will work, and that will be it. We would have set them back before Fleming, with the discovery of penicillin, and that will be that. We'll be back to, maybe not bone sores and screaming, but something.
So this is good news
close to that
something new has been found. Hopefully, it will reinvigorate this slightly stale area of research that isn't really going on. Because this is a publicly funded, by publicly I mean state, state-funded discovery. It's not a private enterprise. So this is just, you could treat it as a case study. It's showing that we can still do this, we can still make progress. Good news. Okay, I've got a couple. I'm just going to rush through some of the slightly less interesting ones. You may remember last year that Tesla Motors CEO Elon Musk announced that they were going to release their patents for electric cars. This is trying to get the market going.
Yes.
And what's now happened is that Toyota have said that they're going to do the same.
Really?
This is the world's biggest car manufacturer, is going to release thousands upon thousands of its patents license-free related to fuel cell technology.
That's incredible.
It is incredible.
It almost sounds too good to be true.
It's strange. It's not.
It is. It's very anti-corporate, isn't it?
So that's exciting. That's exciting.
It is. It would be fantastic for international cooperation. This will be fantastic for research, even just opening avenues on the freedom of essentially intellectual debate.
So hopefully we're going to see some changes happening in the industry. Maybe things are going to happen a little quicker now that all of this data is readily available. So that's exciting.
Lovely.
Here's an interesting one. What will you do with all the extra time in 2015? And I saw that and I thought, I really don't feel as though I have much extra time.
No.
So what is this referring to? There's going to be an extra second. You can think of it like a leap second.
It's the leap second, wonderful.
So it's June 30th, meaning that the hour before midnight is going to be 3,601 seconds long. Because you have an extra second.
Well, now 30th. I can just, cancel
all
the
those
calendar.
things
I
you can
put
do.
everything off. Procrastination is going to take hold now.
It's not for the same reason that you have leap years. Which is the fact that the year isn't quite 365 degree days
in the year
long. Okay. It's about 11 minutes off, and then that gives you the extra quarter, which means every 4 years you have
a leap year.
But it's not that. This is now to do with the Earth's rate of spin, which changes in a similar way to what you were talking about with stars, actually, due to gravitational effects. So the period of this change as a result of interactions with the moon is about 18.6 years, and with the sun is about 25,700 years. And it's the result of these interactions that cause this discrepancy.
So we're talking about the wobbles in the orbit and the slow drag that the moon exerts on the Earth that will slowly slow it down. Tidal forces again.
It's going to give us this extra second to realign our clocks with, if you like, the natural pacing of things.
So do you happen to know who decides to add these leap seconds?
Well, it's really interesting that you say that, because there is current talk about scrapping the whole concept.
Oh, my.
Simply because it's become increasingly difficult to do as technology progresses, as websites, as data, as big processes become more and more dependent on computer clocks, on universally agreed time.
Yes.
When this happened 3 years ago, when there was a leap second 3 years ago, a load of massive, I'm talking about international corporate style websites, collapsed.
Wow.
Because they just weren't ready for it.
Even from our very elementary understanding of computer programming, we know that a lot a lot are based
on computer, anything
computer time.
That's using anything that's meant to be pseudo-random.
Just to give anybody who's not versed in computers, that there is an international standard. I believe it's the 1978. There's a moment which is set as t equals 0.
Really?
Yes, from which all computers measure time, and it's measured in some kind of binary clock, and that's what we are adding a leap second to. But it's incredible, isn't it? In thousands of years, to say, oh yes, from 1978, like we have, Amina Domino here in BC, that will become the new one. But it seems incredible that computers are capable of generating random numbers and all the kind of things based on this
computer clock.
Yes, computer clock.
Yeah. So just interestingly though, the suggestion of letting our clocks go adrift, basically.
Yes.
Obviously, if you leave that long enough, you're going to have midnight at midday and midday at midnight. So it'll be 12 o'clock at night.
Oh, that'd be
interesting. And the sun will be out.
Yes. Which I'm almost tempted to let it happen.
I know. We'd probably all be dead. Well, we would be dead.
We would be. But at least our children can have a laugh.
It would be funny, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Okay, another one. Brilliant title. Coming to a river near you. The invasion of the intersex demon and killer shrimp.
That's fantastic.
It's absolutely
killer
brilliant.
Shrimp.
2 new species of shrimp have made their way into UK waters from countries surrounding the Black Sea. Here's what's happened. They're eradicating our native freshwater species en route. The killer shrimp, called Dichorogamerus villosus.
Oh, an evil name.
And the demon shrimp, literally demon Haemobuffus.
Demon
Haemobuffus are technically amphipods. They're not actually shrimp. That just means they're like flattened shrimp, basically. Tiny little things about the size of your fingernail. And they bring with them a whole host of new parasites and diseases. And it's these parasites that mean they're intersex.
I see.
Essentially, the male shrimps have gender issues, and they exhibit female characteristics, about 50% of them.
So it's an invasion of camp shrimp. Is that what we're saying?
Oh dear.
An endless march.
That's not quite what I'm saying.
No? Okay.
But we'll roll with that. That is what's happening.
It's just a lovely mental image of people, an army of shrimp mincing along the riverbed.
Killing all of the natives. Oh dear. Normally this sort of thing would not catch the public's attention. Who cares about shrimp? Little marine organisms like that. Who cares? There's a reason why the WWF has a panda for its logo. The panda is a completely useless creature.
But it's cuddly.
It doesn't do any in terms of the wider environment, the interconnectedness of organisms. Panda goes, meh, nobody cares. No. Shrimp goes,
that's that.
That's a big problem.
It's like the bumblebee kind of thing,
It is like the bumblebee. Yes. I mean, the ecosystems are going to go to pot. So whoever named these things is a genius, because calling them the killer and demon shrimp has caught people's attention. And there are big movements, apparently, in the UK.
Movements? Is it gay pride by any chance?
Well, it's kind of the opposite then, because it's going against the camp anyway, never mind. So it's an amusing.
I look forward to all the marches that go on with a picture of a shrimp with a line through it.
Yes. So it's a bit like red and grey squirrels, only worse, because in this case the killer demon shrimp actually eat the natives.
Yes, and the grey squirrels aren't usually billed as killer.
No, all camp.
Next
one, this is funny. We do love Australia on Because of the Universe.
Fantastic. We've got another Australia story.
We have an Australia story.
Excellent.
Pubic hair bugs to help solve sex crimes. Murder investigators
They never disappoint, do they? I wonder what Australian universities are like.
Oh, can you imagine?
I think it's just an enormous free-for-all.
Yeah.
It must be lots of beanbags. I picture lots of beanbags and bandanas. People sitting in bandanas. People sitting around with bandanas, long hair. Long hair, smoking something illegal, I imagine.
Let's not be too unpleasant to them.
Well, no, but they're a long way away.
So
they're off doing crazy research.
They are doing about so basically what's happening is we've realised that the DNA profiles of the bacteria that live on pubic hair can help identify rapists, simply because all the bacteria on the rest of your body has pretty much the same DNA from person to person, so you couldn't distinguish the person. But in pubic hair, the DNA is different in the bacteria.
And of course the Australians have known this for a long time.
Well,
or maybe it's just them who would think to look.
I don't know. This study was published in mid-December in the Journal of Investigative Genetics, and it's the first to find that individuals have a unique profile of bacteria on their pubic hair. So it's not something we've known before. But the forensic biologist involved, called Silvana Tridico, this is University in Perth, said everyone has something that was quite special to them. I love that. It's as though you've
quite
got
special.
Anyway,
your own little pubic lice.
Exactly. So basically there are signature taxa that are specific to certain people, so you can kind of tell what's been going on. And that in and of itself isn't useful. The most interesting result came from hair samples from two people who were a couple. Over the period of the study, the bacterial profiles of the couple became more similar. And this is a quote from Tridico. At the last time point, I thought I'd made a mistake. I thought I'd looked at the woman's sample twice because her partner was showing Lactobacillus species. This is a bacteria that is pretty much unique to female pubic hair.
Right.
But I then reanalyzed it and got the same result. I wonder why that could be. She then asked the couple some personal questions, the study says. And what it basically says is that when you get this transfer of hair that happens with sexual activity. This is just this story is ridiculous.
It is rather.
Then it allows you to check for bacteria between victims and rapists in rape cases. And then finally she said, I can't believe that no one's thought about it before. Not gonna lie,
No, of course not.
A rapist pubic hair isn't something I spend my mornings thinking
Well,
about.
clearly you aren't thinking on the right lines.
No.
What kind of education do you have?
Well, not an Australian one, evidently. No. Finally, the last two things, I'm just going to be quick. The Philae lander is missing. We know that it bounced. We know that it got a bit lost in the shade, couldn't recharge, and now we can't find it at all.
It could be anywhere.
Yeah,
look under your settees, ladies and gentlemen.
They've sent Rosetta to go and have a look at the comet, which is where it's meant to be.
Right.
Not sent it, just while it was
Aimed
passing.
Yeah.
Had a look, and they can't even see it.
No,
so there's obviously not much gravity. They have said they're pretty confident it didn't just bounce off into deep space at some point. But it's a bit sad. We've got all the data from it anyway, so...
I look forward to some future enormous space mission which is launched to some kind of nearby star, and across the windshield just spatters this carcass from eons past.
Yeah. Brilliant. So that's the news. Shall we break for a song? And then
yes, we're going to break for a
guest?
song. Yeah, excellent. So we're going to go for a little bit of Echo Smith. This is Cool Kids.
Hello, this is Simon Mayo, and you're listening to Raw, 12:51 a.m.
Hello, this is Mark Kermode, and I'd like to say what he said. Is this the radio station you started on?
Yeah.
What did you do? Just give us a little bit of what you would have done. Go on.
It's just a more rubbish version of what I'm doing now.
If people were tuning in back in 1977,
8,
what
9.
would they have heard when Simon Mayo took to the airwaves?
Me talking to myself. And
No, I don't mean tell me, just do a bit of it.
Well, there's nothing...
Like just pretend, like you're on the air now, just like do a bit of what you would have done.
Well, I would just talk normally and say, here is Daryl Hall and John Oates. But I would be slightly more miserable than this because I was living in Tossell Flats.
Join us, Josh and Amy, for a new web series based entirely around film, with exclusive interviews, discussions and your opinions. Head over to our YouTube channel for the first episode.
Just search Raw 12:51am and keep up to date with the arts on your student radio station.
On 12:51am.
And online, this is your Raw.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Because the Universe on Raw, your bi-weekly science show. So we are live at the moment. We are talking... Well, we're going to introduce our topic in a minute, but first we're going to give you just a little bit of information regarding social media and how to get in contact with us. So we have a Twitter handle, which is CosTheUniverse, so that's @CosTheUniverse. You can also get in touch with us through Facebook, which is Because the Universe, so facebook.com/Because the Universe. You can also get in touch with us at becausetheuniverse@aol.com. And finally, you can message us on our little message board over at radio.warwick.ac.uk.
Brilliant.
Lovely.
Wonderful. Do that, because we will have the Ask Harry segment later on, where Harry has to answer your, whatever I think is the best or worst question.
Yes.
Of the show. Anyway, let's bring in our guest. Hello.
Absolutely.
Hello, Ed.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. Lovely to be here.
It's lovely to have you.
Well, thank you for coming on.
If you could please... As you just tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us the subject that you're doing, what year you're in, and also after you've done that, give us a truth and a lie.
Oh, don't do this to me.
Go on.
Well, I'm Ed. Hello.
Hi, Ed.
Hello, world. I'm a second year engineering student here at Warwick.
Wonderful.
Truth and a lie.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I play a musical instrument. Do I play violin or do I play the piano? No, that's wrong. I don't play either of those.
Oh.
Ooh.
So a lie and a bigger lie.
Do I play the flute or do I play the saxophone?
Harry.
I don't know. I just for listeners' interest, I live with Ed.
You should know this.
I should know.
How do you not know this?
I don't know. I'm going to say that you play the saxophone.
What were the two?
The flute or the saxophone?
Well, since I have no idea, just so that one of us is right, I'm going to go for flute. It would be embarrassing.
You would be correct.
Oh, that's very embarrassing.
And you live with him and you didn't know.
Oh. I didn't know this.
Okay, Ed.
Harry, where have you been?
Where have you been?
Clearly, our relationship isn't as strong as I thought.
No, obviously not. Ed, any of those news stories, did any of them leap out to you at all?
I love the Toyota thing. Yeah.
The one about releasing the patents, the license-free fuel cell patents.
Good. I mean, the automotive industry has gone from being a very constrained, very secretive thing, and it's broadening up in many ways. Because, I mean, with environmental factors, it would collapse in on itself if we didn't. So it's interesting. It should.
It is.
Provide some good results. Do you have
any predictions? What do you think is going to happen? Will anything happen as a result of this?
Even with regard to stuff like research at universities, and will it open up project work, or do you think it will open up links to industry in that way?
I think it would. I mean, we've got the brand new advanced automotive fuel research centre.
Absolutely. It's just open
over there,
isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, that I think, I don't know what part they play in it, but it should be good. It'd be wonderful. I think there's some debate as to whether the hydrogen fuel cell as an entire concept will work, because obviously hydrogen is the smallest atom.
Yes.
And how do you hold it with any other atoms? It'll just fall through the gaps. So
that's a brilliant description, isn't it?
Well, it is.
That's an absolutely brilliant description.
That's how it works.
Is that how you deal with it in engineering? Is that the way that you understand?
We simplify things very, very easily from physics.
Because all of the matter is like a sieve, really.
Both of us, we didn't look at each other. Me and Harry, it's not that we looked at each other when you said that, but I saw out of the corner of your
both jerked
your shoulders went up, and I felt mine go up at that. Okay,
is that wrong?
Engineers.
Are we going to have a very lengthy discussion about this after the show?
No, not at all.
No,
not at all. But you are right that there is some discussion, because you still have to get. It's like, so we've got the hydrogen buses in London.
Yes.
That use 33. They release 33 times more CO2 into the atmosphere than if you just had a normal bus, simply because you still have to get the hydrogen from somewhere.
It's usually from electrolysis,
and you need
isn't
to
it?
use
Water,
electricity to get it, and that electricity comes from somewhere. And where does it come from? Well, it comes from oil and coal.
Yep.
And actually, it takes an awful lot more to obtain that amount of hydrogen than it would to just.
So you're just outsourcing your pollution just to one glob somewhere in a power station.
Yeah. So I think the important thing that we would want to say is that a hydrogen car is completely useless unless you are generating your electricity sustainably.
Yes.
I think electric vehicles, so more sort of lithium-ion battery technology, that's much more direct, much more accessible from where we are now. That will probably be the predominant technology in the future.
So is that literally just plugging it in to recharge?
Plugging it in the wall, but it's more than that. With the energy demand that we're going to be experiencing in the next few years, having so many electric vehicles, all with batteries plugged in at the same time, we're going to have an enormous
so
battery capacity storage.
Yeah.
And that in itself can reduce our generation capacity, because whilst you can store it in electric cars, you can also draw it from electric cars if it's not being used. So it will create this remarkable system, infrastructure, which could revolutionise.
So it'd be the equivalent of having some kind of
the energy
capacitors.
Industry.
Interesting. Everyone have their own massive capacitor.
I mean, the only previous way of storing electricity is in a dam. You pump water up a hill and then let it back down the hill when it's done. That's quite efficient. That's 95% efficient or something around there. But
I don't know. We should know that.
We know that hydro is very efficient.
It's very efficient.
Yes,
but you need a big dam for.
Yes, I imagine it's a big investment to get the dam in place.
Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to go over to Skype Ducky.
I see.
Where did I say he was?
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia.
He's doing Mexican dancing.
Yes, of course.
Hello. If you're watching on webcam, then he is on screen.
Yes, for anyone who wants to have a look quickly, you can go
would want anyway.
radio.warwick.ac.uk and click on live webcam.
It's riveting.
Yes.
Hello, Ducky. He's
waving. I can see him.
So, Ducky, could you tell me, please, what is the topic, the question for this week?
And if Ducky could just stop pirouetting for one moment. There we go.
That was interesting. I had to lean to the laptop there, but he did tell me. So
there's a lot of music in the background.
There is, where he is, I've completely lost the train of thought. It's lucky again that we have an engineer
in the room.
How just as it happens.
Yes,
so
accidentally.
Ed, the question, the topic, the thing that we're going to be talking about is: has 3D printing started a revolution?
Wow.
Well,
but I'm actually not going to ask you what you think about that. Mr. Manners, being so old as you are, you've been around for many revolutions.
I have.
So I'm just interested, what sort of revolution are we talking about? Is this political? Is it that there's a political party for creative freedom and artistic design that or I don't know. Is this political or...
I mean, this stems back to something I remember very well, which was the invention of the stone axe. Yes, that was that was a good one. That was a doozy. I mean, it wasn't quite as good as the Industrial Revolution, which, again, another milestone in my memory. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, I am old enough that all I can remember are the great revolutions and upheavals of humanity. But we'll just move on to the actual question. So 3D printing.
Move on to something that's true.
Something vaguely relevant. Yes, so I believe that 3D printing is going to be the revolution, the driving force behind the major changes in the 21st century, at least, if not the 22nd as well. So we have questions of, we have centralized manufacturing centers which were introduced by the Industrial Revolution. So people moving into major population centers, an explosion of population. You have, establishment of more rigid class structures. So you have workers in factories and the bourgeoisie of the factory owners, and then you have the aristocracy on top of those who implement government and so forth. But this will open up an enormous availability of free enterprise. You'll have an entrepreneurial complete freedom, completely uncentralized.
Well, it's the idea that you are able to have a 3D printer in your home.
Yes, absolutely. So there will be no need for international supply chains or distribution networks. You won't have corporate structures. All of it will be irrelevant. You won't need enormous factories. You won't need these horrible working conditions. People will have the freedom to take control of their own productivity and creativity as well.
I think it is just, we'll talk about this, or rather look at both sides of this a little bit more. I think it is worth pausing here to say that isn't necessarily what's going to happen.
No,
it's not as though it's set in stone that things are going to happen quite to that degree. There's a range of opinions on how much this is going to... But I think what we can say at the start is, by revolution we mean a complete change in the way people think about where they're going to get their products from.
This is very much being kept in the background, quite surprisingly, in the way that it's a slow build, but it's coming remarkably quickly at the same time, and it really will change the entire structure of the way we live.
Yeah,
forever.
It could reverse the old in terms of back in the 1700s Victorian era, where everyone flocked into cities for the factories. When steam and electricity came, it brought machinery and transport of mass material, so we could manufacture on a scale never before seen.
Yes.
And now that we can bring that quality of manufacture back to a really small scale, what's the need for factories? And without the need for factories, what's the need for cities and shops? The whole city structure that is a centralized living accommodation could completely collapse.
That would be fascinating.
We can 3D print anything, or we should be able to soon.
Maybe we should pause. So for anyone that doesn't know, what is it? When we were talking about 3D printing, what is this, Ed?
There's several different methods, but essentially, if you take a 2D printer and add another axis, another dimension, so you can print up and down. It prints in material, most commonly plastic at the moment, but metals are coming, and they're already there. But it's printing this matter. So rather than a 2D object, a 2D image as an all printer, you print an object. You can print cups, water bottles, egg cups.
Right, so you can actually print out from nothing, from a block of material, a thing, an object.
Well, that's the thing. It's not from a block of material. That's the past way of looking.
So we're not even carving things here. We're talking about
you add it. It's additive manufacturing. You start with nothing and build up from stuff.
Yeah,
but you don't remove any object. It's any material. So it's
you said there were a couple of ways of doing it. What are they?
Yeah, well, it's not that new a concept. We've only heard about it in the last few years, but back in the 80s it started. It was called rapid prototyping back then, which was for the biggest sort of engineering firms and people, because if you wanted to create a product, a prototype of a product, you'd have to do a lot of time-consuming manufacture. But what they had is they called it stereolithography, where you shine like a UV light or a UV laser on some photoreactive resin, and that sort of cures a layer, and then you drop that down and it cures another layer, drop that down, cures another layer, and by manipulating the laser you change the image layer by layer in sort of a cross-sectional view until you make up this whole image. It's still around and still usable, but it was back then.
So now this is done with nylon. You have powdered nylon, and instead of using UV, you use infrared, and it's pretty much the exact same technique.
There's what they call selective laser sintering or selective laser melting, where you sort of have a bath of fluid or a bath of dust particles, and that can happen with metals, through gold, silver, titanium, all these exotic metals. They can do it with that now, and you sort of scan your laser and melt along in the pattern of the bottom layer, the very bottom surface, then drop that down. And because the metal is supporting the product, it's very efficient. You sort of, it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean it is.
I really want one.
Yes.
It's really cool.
And on the subject of really wanting one, it's difficult. I've not really been able to find much about this in the UK. In the States, a few years ago, you could buy a 3D printer for about $2,200. It's now below $1,000. I'm not sure what that is in pounds. I'm not good at.
It's about £1,500, I believe.
So that's saying something. People spend a lot of money on a lot of things, but this is a real piece of kit. I mean, it's a
serious piece of
It's a whole
technology,
different ball game.
Yeah, I mean, those methods we talked about they're very industrial, that's way beyond your range of everyday commercial buying. But what is FDM, fluid deposition modelling, where it is like a plastic squirting gun that moves around and squirts like a plastic
drop by drop.
Yeah, drop by drop.
Right.
That is very cheap. You can buy them on the internet. You can build your own. Actually, there's quite an interesting concept that was developed in Bath called RepRap.
Rep Rap. Is that an acronym or?
I don't think so. I think it's like reproduction rapid. I don't know, something like that. But it's essentially having a 3D printer made out of 3D printed parts, and that 3D printer can then completely recreates itself.
Yes.
So it's like robots making robots to take over the world.
Yeah, reproduction.
Once the 3D printers take over,
this is going to be the end of humanity.
The army of 3D printers.
No, we're joking.
It's very scalable. It's going to come down. I mean, in terms of, if you remember inkjet printing, when it first came along, it was exceedingly expensive and exceedingly slow. I mean, I still remember a printer that took sort of a minute to print a page of text.
Yes.
But now it's
17
stupidly
pages,
fast.
I think, is the standard now, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
By the time it comes into very, very accessible to the public, it's going to be such a technology.
Yeah.
Such an amazing thing. That
even the past year or two, it's gone from kind of a novelty technology to something that is a genuine threat to the structure of our entire society.
Yeah.
So just from here, it's only going to
something
escalate.
You said was really interesting, actually, because I think you've really pinned down exactly what we mean by revolution, because this is not new tech. It's been around since the 80s, like you said.
Yes.
But it was used for prototyping. It was only used for prototyping.
It still predominantly is. I mean, the sort of plastic cheap models there's a very sort of not childish but very simplistic way of dealing with it. I mean, if you get a new 3D printer, you're obviously going to print out something very novelty to show your friends, but the engineering principles it enables you to be able to access, if you like. It's astounding.
But airplanes have air ducts that are 3D printed parts.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's used commercially.
Yeah, I mean, before it's relatively simplistic parts that don't really have any stresses or much degree of importance.
So shall we bring in here just a little bit and tell people about what 3D printing has been used for recently?
That would be a good thing.
I've got some stuff here. So we know that a toaster-sized 3D printer was sent up to the ISS a while ago. Recently, it's just been used to print a socket wrench, which can really be used, and it was beamed up in CAD software, so computer-aided design software, from the ground and directly up to the space station, and was printed out live by the astronauts and can be used for direct repair. So this is going to revolutionise the ability to enact space exploration and repair satellites and so forth, because the enormous amount of cost involved in getting materials to orbit is the main
now
limitation.
All you've got to do is beam up a 3D rendering.
Exactly, which costs nothing and is instantaneous. Also, we've had huge revolutions in the medical industry.
Now, this is exciting.
Yes, this is going to revolutionise medicine. So we've had recently a trachea, a pelvis, a jaw, hip replacements, and a skull plate transplanted into live patients, and all of these materials were made directly from 3D printers.
Now, there's something that there's a nuance there as well that is really worth unpacking, because not only are these materials that have been 3D printed, and what you could also do is you could also use a biomaterial, so some sort of the biodegradable wax or nutrient rich wax, that gel that you were talking about, laying down drop by drop, that could have in it cells.
Yes.
You could then 3D print an ear scaffold. You could then feed it, so literally just in a petri dish with your relevant saline solution, your nutrient solution, and it would grow into an ear. Now, an ear is a relatively simple thing. A liver is much less simple, and we're going to post, because this is something that is really helpful if you can see what's actually happening. A 3D printer, there are some brilliant videos. We're actually going to post some of these videos on the Facebook page, and I'm going to put a TED talk up. Where he shows you a liver that was 3D printed 2 hours before the TED Talk.
That is amazing.
And it is incredible. It is absolutely astounding.
We use that word a lot around here, don't we? Amazing, oh, that's good, that's wonderful. But this is genuine science fiction level amazing.
Yes. It's the same as... I'll just post a couple of the videos on the medical
Also, they're talking about increasing the longevity of skin. So this has the ability to a huge revolution in the cosmetic industry. I believe Ed also mentioned to me this inject principle of curing burns. Would you like to say?
So
it's the military that are funding this as well, which
there's
is
a place in America called Wade Forest, which is doing this, and they've actually taken a commercial inkjet printer. I don't know what brand it is, but a genuine printer, because the size of the nozzle in the print head is exactly the same size as a skin cell, and they print out skin. You put your hand in the printer and it'll print skin on your burn. It'll scan your burn and the depth of how far it needs to print, and it'll just print you new skin.
And again, that just doesn't...
It doesn't compute in terms of...
It's very science fiction, isn't it?
It's the thing you think, oh, well, yes, with my background science knowledge, I know that such a thing would be possible, but that's not going to be my generation.
That's kind of a far-flung future.
But it's happening now, right?
Genuinely, you can print new skin over a burn.
Again, I'm going to put a video up of that. So I have got a video of that I will post.
I think we're just going to break for a song.
Yeah, and then we'll come right back, because we're getting to some
exciting topic, and we'll continue with more applications and more stuff on 3D printing. So we're going to break for a little bit of Philip George. This is Wish You Were Mine.
This is your Raw.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Because of the Universe on Radio at Warwick. So just very quickly, I want to give you our social media contacts again. So you can get hold of us on Twitter at Cos the Universe, Facebook, facebook.com/Because the Universe, and email becausetheuniverse@aol.com. Message in.
Or directly via the Radio
Absolutely,
Warwick
you can
website.
message us radio.warwick.ac.uk, and you can message us directly.
Yeah, although we are as always running short of time. Unless we get a really beastly question, we're probably not going to have time for
us. Otherwise, stay quiet.
Yeah, right. Let's get right back to it. So we've been talking about 3D printing with Ed Barlow, a second-year engineer. Thank you for being here, Ed. It's been very interesting. And so we're tackling this idea of whether or not 3D printing has already started a revolution. And the way we're going to springboard into two important issues that we've just identified is by saying that in the States, hundreds of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, it's at least in the tens of thousands of these things.
I think it's just hit 100,000 the market.
Has it just hit 100? I know that there was one company that had sold over 15,000 in the 2 years that it had been, so I'm assuming it's going to be in the region of 100 in total. These things are going into homes, and then what you've got is you've got online catalogues of the 3D designs that you can download and print out. So this is great for things like decorative light fittings. You can just print that out. On a more practical sense, there's a whole range of Toyota carpet screw heads in case your carpet is coming loose that you can just print.
Just little things around the home.
Yeah, so it's
that's what's really going to hammer it home, isn't it? The general applicability, not kind of novelty, big, one-time items. It's just everyday little bits and things people have to go out to the shops for, which will really drive home, as Ed's mentioned, the making obsolete of shops and that kind of corporate structure.
And hopefully it'll also get rid of the disposable custom that we've got almost. When something breaks, we throw the whole thing away.
Or... is it going to exasperate that? Because if something breaks, you can just print another one.
Right.
That's true.
That's true.
I mean,
so it really depends on the size of the item.
But you could argue that people usually throw things away because of the annoyance of going and finding a tiny little component.
A tiny little screw head, for example.
Yes. Whereas if you can just immediately print it out and you don't have to go trawling through endless catalogues online looking for serial numbers or anything like this, you could just print it out. And that's that. You plug it in and it works again.
Yeah.
You could argue that this will, as I said, really revolutionise the waste.
But let's talk about the level of creativity that could be happening as a result of this. Again, I'm going to post some videos by artists and conceptual designers and various people like that who are using this technology. I mean, some of the stuff they're coming up with is absolutely I mean, it's beautiful.
Yes, I mean, the ability to create art in 3 dimensions is a real novelty. That's something that will give people immense power. Well, I have seen a lot of worry about people thinking that 3D printing will really essentially dumb people down even more than they already expected to be because of the internet, because of the general applicability of this kind of thing, that people won't learn how to make anything, that they'll just print it out. And I don't agree with this.
Well, it's very pessimistic, isn't it?
It is.
When actually, that's something that has been something the people who designed this software have made a point of saying over and over and over again, is it's very intuitive. The sort of coding that you're having to know isn't really coding. It's just a piece of 3D design software that, when we think about children, how much exposure they have to computers in general, that sort of software should be becoming increasingly intuitive to each generation.
Yes.
So I would say hopefully it will do the opposite.
Absolutely. I think it's the general point of the naysayers again that, people said about the internet and mobile phone, and it's just not true. The internet has only exacerbated the incredible networking that we have throughout the world and sharing of ideas.
Yeah.
But that networking...
Yes.
That networking brings with it an implicit risk.
It does.
Security issues.
Because you can print a undetectable, by which I mean it has no metal components, gun.
A plastic gun.
Yes.
Plastic gun. It's called the Liberator.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Ed, do you want to talk to us about
this?
There's
a professor in the Department of Engineering, Dr. Simon Lee, and he actually printed this. He did the UK testing on it. When the chap in America did it, he released it online for just a few minutes before the US government took it down. It was downloaded over 10,000 times. That's 10,000 people with the plans to press print on a gun.
And was that in, how long was it up for?
I'm not sure, but it wasn't a long time at all. It was, but we downloaded this in the university, and he printed out a range of them, and every single time they had a complete catastrophic failure. They posed more threat to the user than the person, but that's with current technology. Give it 2 years. Well, no, probably even now, because this was a few years ago. It will, you can do it.
So you just so we're talking about the capability is there.
The capability is definitely there, but whether it's doable, whether it should be by the government, watched by the government. So
it should be safeguarded.
It should be safeguarded. Censoring.
So it's difficult because there are 4 classes of 3D printed weapon. You can print a knife without any difficulty.
Yes, and you could. There's no way you could safeguard that.
No,
anyone
but you
could
can buy a knife from a shop. So that's kind of a redundant example. You could print a gun part. Well, that's actually a useful thing.
Yes, if you own a weapon and you need to service it. You can print a metal gun, except the 3D printers are ranging between £500,000 up to £1 million at the moment. It's the sort of thing that the amount of power these things take, you just wouldn't have in a residential area at the moment. But you could definitely argue that sort of tech is probably not going to be available to your regular individual. And then you do have this more being able to print, if not a completely undetectable, fully plastic gun, then as long as you had, a metal or a stronger component that was going to be taking most of the stress, you could print the rest of it.
Yes, it is entirely feasible with even the current level of technology. And just when the price comes down, it'll be more accessible to everyone.
And it's the sort of thing that, like you said, you can download it off. Now, you can't download it off the internet because of what the American government has done. And we're not going to... Are we going to delve into that politics of where... Because that really is just politics. It's about people's rights. It's First, Second Amendment.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that in another show, maybe. But maybe it's worth noting then that 3D printing technology may bring into the forefront an enormous risk to intellectual property rights. How can you protect your inventions when somebody could just scan it in and produce it on a mass scale?
Well, any part, like you say,
anything.
If you have it, you scan it. You can scan it.
Also, again, profiteering and capitalism will all fall down because anyone can just scan in anything and distribute it at their leisure.
And while I personally, and I think maybe we should talk about this another time, while I personally I don't have a problem with you not being able to download a spec for printing out a gun. I don't have a problem with that. A gun is a device that kills people.
Yes.
And the whole... So yeah, we're not...
I think this is worth talking about again.
I
think
it's a whole show's worth.
It is a whole show.
There's a lot in there. So intellectual, maybe.
Yeah.
Stuff.
While I don't like that, like you say, there is this whole... The fact that you can just scan something in.
Yes.
And should that be regulated? How is it going to be regulated?
How could you?
Exactly.
Anyone could do it. You could just take home anything, scan it in, and print out another one.
Start mass distributing it.
And there's nothing that anyone could do to stop you.
No. So it's very, but as with all technology,
yes,
we have to decide how to use it. But the technology itself is not good.
It sounds a nightmare in our current profit-driven society, but it does sound almost utopian, almost amazing that we could reach that level where anyone could have anything they wanted whenever they wanted. And if you can read into people the general respect and for what they need and what living an enlightened life. That is an ultimate freedom.
It's really a stewardship question, isn't it?
You print out what you need when you want it, and that's that.
Even as far as food, I mean, you can already buy a 3D printer. It's called the Chef Jet, believe it or not, and it will print you chocolate, and you can buy ones for pasta and even
that's brilliant.
meat.
That is amazing.
You could print beef if you wanted to.
So we're talking about the Star Trek
replicator type of concept. There is research at the moment going on into building a printer that will print you a full 3-course meal with the exact nutrients to suit your own body requirements.
I look forward to this.
I don't know whether it tastes any good.
Chocolate gâteau every day, and you can make it healthy as well. I bet you could replace the nutrients.
You could probably have a chocolate that tastes of meat. It's weird.
Yes. Well, you could have your 5 a day in a bar of chocolate.
You could.
Well, why not? Incredible.
Maybe. Anyway, that's kind of gotten off topic.
Yes, anyway.
But there are the 3D printers that can print food, and so the point that's being made there is the diversity of the medium in which you're printing.
Yeah, literally anything. There's research going into it. There's a material called PLA, which is polylactic acid, which is most of the plastic parts print at the moment, which is biodegradable. It's made of plant oil.
Right.
And in terms of energy saving for 3D printers as well, there's so much more. It's so much less carbon footprint. I mean, by the time you've transported a product across the country, by the time you've used the energy in producing it and labeling it and packaging it, it's all gone. It's purely the product and no waste.
This plant oil substrate, you could possibly then make some other additional technology where people could essentially ferment their own material.
Yeah, or just have it like on tap. Have a pipe feeding it into the house.
So the distribution cost goes out the window.
You can potentially extrapolate the 3D printing concept as far as you like. It is really a revolution.
So this is a revolution. I think it
is.
The tech has been around for a while, but it's come to the attention of the artistic and creative community that has given it that boost that it needed to be pushed back into the scientific domain.
Well, those artistic designs that you see, they're not just artistic. They can't be made any other way. You can't take a block of material and remove it in that way.
It's one continuous piece of material.
And that opens up, in terms of engineering and design, an entire new degree of freedom of form and shape and strength that's never been available before. So the way of thinking has to change before this is
brilliant. So it sounds like we've all concluded, yes, this is a revolution.
It is a revolution.
Right. So I am going to post up 3, 4, maybe 5 videos about 3D printing. I'm not going to put anything up about the 3D printed gun. If you want to look into that, the guy who's kind of designed it is owning that company is called Cody Wilson. But there's a lot of bias in there, and I couldn't really find anything that examined it suitably non-biasedly.
Yes.
So I'll put some stuff up. Do look at that. It's really interesting.
Fantastic. Ed, thank you very much for coming.
Ed. Thank you very much for having me.
Have you.
It's been an experience.
It's been wonderful to have you. So, has 3D printing started a revolution? Yes, it has.
Yes,
and
definitely.
It's an exciting one.
I look forward to its results.
Many positives.
Brilliant.
Indeed.
We're not going to have time for Ask Harry.
No, unfortunately we're not. We're going to have to bump that into next show.
We are.
But I don't think there's any great loss to previous listeners.
No. All right. Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to tune back in 2 weeks' time. So in 2 weeks' time, we'll have our next show asking the next deep
a great
question.
Run lined up.
We have.
Some really interesting topics.
Which we don't know yet.
We
don't plan it in advance.
No. But it will be interesting.
Yep.
Tune in, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to break. We're going to go out on Ollie Murs Up.
Have a good Sunday.
Have a good Sunday, everybody.
And the rest of the day.
Indeed.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's me again. Thank you for listening to Because the Universe. Remember that our next show will be on in 2 weeks' time from whenever you were last listening. And do email us at becausetheuniverse@AOL.com if you would be interested in coming on to a show. We would love to have you with us.